Hello. So, just every once in a while I like to drive and share my random thoughts. So here's kind of what I'm thinking right now. Every human being has two bodies to their human vessel. You've got your biological body that you can see, and you have a spirit, which is a body made of light, photons. Now, every human has both. Not every human is connected to the light body. So, I'm thinking, this human spirit, when things transform, it's just a change in vibration. It rises and falls. As it rises, it becomes less dense. As it falls, it becomes more dense. So, perhaps we are in a time of infinite transformation between complete solid density with no space and complete space with no density, and everything in between. Now, if you've got an infinite amount of time for that to occur in, then you could be in all densities at one time if something is transforming from the outside in getting denser, or the inside out getting more space and less form. Because that's how it works. It goes from the outside in when you're descending, inside out when you're ascending, is transformation. So maybe that's why we have these two bodies, We have this change going on the descent, where our body was made in the image of us being just the light body. And as we descended, we took on form. And over infinite amounts of time, here we are with these two bodies now. And now that we're still descending, which means we're lowering our vibration, we're losing that connection to the spirit body because it's dying. And that spirit body perhaps has its outer layer that's dying. And that is a decayed photonic body that encompasses the spirit body. Maybe that's what our soul is. Now, I know, we perceive and communicate with this body through certain neurons, mirror neurons, that are mirror images of all the other neurons. Well, all the other neurons take chemical and change it into electricity or light for thought. So perhaps the mirror image of that takes the light and transforms it into chemical to communicate with the physical body. Okay? That's what I'm thinking. It's making sense. And I'm not hearing anyone else try it, figuring it out. So anyway, this connection is your conscience. The spirit is your conscience. Because when it's rising from doing loving things, you feel good. When it's descending from doing things that separate you from everything else and everyone else, it descends and it hurts. That's why people with a conscience don't do shit, because it hurts them. They feel their vibration lowering. Okay? So we got this decay. These dead photons that need to come off of the spirit body. Resurrection of the dead. What do you think? That allows, your right hemisphere is the processor for this light body. Your left hemisphere is a processor for your biological body. So if you have neurons that connect the two, and you could have both of them operating perfectly fine on a magnetic resonance camera. But if there's a teeny tiny little connection in there that isn't communicating your light body, then it would appear as if both hemispheres were operating just fine, but your left hemisphere wouldn't be perceiving or getting the information from the right hemisphere, which thinks in pictures. We think in pictures when we have our conscience and we are connected to our spirit body. The empath can see pictures, the psychopath cannot. Now, I'm sure there's degrees of this connection. So, back to some other stuff. Getting this decay off. You start perceiving the spirit photon with your right hemisphere. Okay? Now, when you've got this decay, when you are honoring your spirit, that decay starts neutralizing because it was descending, but now the spirit, when it's being fed with acts of kindness, music you love, things that make you have goosebumps or feel good or ascend your vibration. Oh gosh, I get lost. I stopped at a stop sign and I just totally lost my train of thought because I have to make a turn here and I'm not sure which way to go, but I'm going to go right because we're talking about the right hemisphere connecting us to the spirit, or translating it. It's not the connection, it's the translator. Okay, so anyway, so we could have humans that appear to be operating just fine, but they aren't seeing pictures in their mind. And the right hemisphere is where intuitive information processing comes into play, and you can predict a process without using experience. And the left hemisphere, which is the individuality and the ego, cannot do that. It can only use past experience to statistically predict the outcome. Well, if you're only using the past experience to create the future, then you're going to keep running in circles. And there's no progress. So, this connection is integral to the process or to the progress of the human species. Okay? Well, we have a community of globalists that don't have the connection, or they do, but they're at such a low vibration that they don't process information very fast, because you process information based on the frequency of vibration of the human vessel. The faster your vibration, the more information you process, and that is awareness. You deepen awareness by raising your vibration and perceiving more of what is around you. Okay, I mean, Tesla even said, you know, he uses the light, and the information in the light can tell him anything he needs to know. He doesn't even need memory. That's what he's talking about. And you don't. When you use your spirit, you don't. And he was a genius. So, okay, the globalist, they don't feel, or they're at a low vibration. If the ones that are connected, that are still trying to eliminate everybody else so that they can rule the world, that is evil. The ones that don't have a connection and don't know any better, they don't know any better. I mean, you can't tell somebody that something is there that they can't see. The people with the conscience know we have that spirit body. We know there's more to believe in than just our biological self and the scene. There's more than that, because we know it, we feel it, and it's not crazy. We know it. So if you can't feel that, you don't know it's there, right? So we can't expect people to do the right thing if they don't have a guide, especially the ones who have fallen into learned behavior that is of a predator nature. Because if all you've ever learned is to take or be taken from, then your only happiness is going to be to take, and you don't have anything telling you if it's right or wrong, and you could be descending into a pile of nothing and not even know it. All you know is that you get those dopamine receptors going when you take, because you get a gain, and the ego works on rewards. So if you're getting stuff, then you're feeling better. But those of us who understand the spirit body, our reward is a vibration raise, a rise in consciousness. That's our reward. So of course we're going to do the right thing, because we'd much rather process information faster and have more connection to, you know, something more than ourselves. That's why. So the ones that are hurting the others, they don't have a conscience connection. You can't punish that. You can't blame them. You can't be mad about it, really. You can only heal it. And I have another little video just that I posted. It's my contribution to reality on how to cure that thing, because it's real simple. But anyway, these are just some random thoughts that I'm having, you know. It seems like we have had some people who have left information from the past about how this spirit thing works, and the teachings from Jesus about resurrection were actually, from what I've researched, you research it for yourself, you know, so you know. I mean, I know because I investigated and put it all together, and so that's why I know. But St. Gregory was actually had a court case against him, because what somebody else in the Vatican was really upset with him because he left out the information from the resurrection in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles, which, yeah, have completely screwed up our timeline. The weird thing is, you know, St. Gregory was around the same time as the Prophet Muhammad. However, he talks a lot about Augustus, which would have been during the time of Jesus. Yeah. So anyway, stories have been rewritten for whatever reason. Sometimes because people can't process and translate information, and sometimes because people want to withhold it. So St. Gregory actually had someone in the Vatican that wanted to take him to court because he left that information out of, from what I've read, the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles, but I'm thinking it's more like the Bible. And that person that was going to take him to court, I can't remember their name, they were murdered right before their court case. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? It's what's going on now. A psychopath, and St. Gregory definitely was a psychopath. He was extremely mean, and he witnessed a lot of violence in his life because I believe he was in the army for the Roman Empire, or he was a commander or something. But I mean, you're going to witness a lot of violence, which can cause psychopathy. Post-traumatic stress will kill the neurons to connect you, the mirror neurons. So anyway, St. Gregory also redid the calendar, and the monk that redid the calendar, there is speculation that at one time he has said he added time to the calendar so people would not freak out about the end times, because the church did not want them to know exactly when that would be. And he said 500 years, which I thought was kind of weird because Muhammad was 500 years after Jesus. Is Muhammad Jesus? I think so. I don't know. I wasn't there, but I think so. Anywho, so, you know, we got, you know, and if St. Gregory was a psychopath and couldn't process information and didn't have a conscience, then he might have thought that he was fighting the forces of evil, because the people with a conscience to the people without one appear as though they're possessed and demonic, because they have something that's entered their body that the psychopath doesn't understand. Well, yeah, it's not a demon. It might be if your vibration is really low and you're not processing information to the best of your ability because you're not loving. But if you have a high vibration and you've got the connection, whatever enters your body is going to be perceived as angelic and godlike. It's the same thing entering somebody with a low vibration. They just don't get all the information and they're scared, or they appear to have schizophrenia or whatever. But it's just information processing, and it's causing a humongous amount of misinformation, fear of the unknown, discord, war. I mean, there is a war on the human spirit right now because of the ones that don't understand it, thinking it's demonic. It's not demonic. It's demonic if you're an evil, or if you're not a loving person, and no one's taught you how to love, and you do have a conscience, that's going to cause your vibration to be super low. And when you start getting this light coding coming into that photon body, you're going to perceive it like a crazy person, like something's trying to get you. Nothing's trying to get you. It's just information coming in. Utilize it. Learn how to process it to the best of your ability and use it to your advantage. And you can't do that if you are not loving. Waveform of love and synapse. Faster information processing. So anyway, it's my random thoughts for the day, but here's a little bit about my story if you're interested, now that I've just put my random thoughts out there. But I had an extremely traumatic experience, and I have a conscience. I have never deliberately tried to hurt anybody else, ever. I can't. It hurts. I can't do something behind someone's back to get them. I can't. In the past I wish that I could. Sometimes I have wished that I could, because I can't. So anyway, when I went through this extremely, I'm talking the worst, a mother's worst nightmare, worse than your children even dying, happened. It was so horrible. I started fantasizing constantly about getting justice, and it caused my vibration to be so low that I didn't recognize myself. I still couldn't hurt anybody else, but I sure could think about it. And just those thoughts alone took me into a really dark place. And that's when I realized people that hurt other people don't know any better. I know better because I have a conscience, and I had two parents that taught me not to do it, and they also loved me very much. So I know what it feels like to be loved. And had I gone through a traumatic experience as a child, they would have been there to help me through it. People who are adults that prey on children, it happened to them. No one taught them any better, and they were children that went through that alone with no one loving them. When I realized that, I really started having some compassion for the psychopath. I know people think I'm crazy for that. Like, how could you have compassion for that kind of monster? Well, if you really think about things in the most loving way, you see that it's not in our nature to hurt each other, unless we're taught that, and nothing is inside us to tell us yes or no. You don't have a conscience, and you got learned predator behavior. You got the mark of the beast, pretty much, predator behavior. And if no one's ever taught you what love really is, you can't love yourself. And that is the first step to everything, is loving yourself. It breaks my heart when somebody does not love themselves, because they don't love anything if they don't love themselves. You can't. Well, if no one loved you, why would you love yourself? The ego mimics. The ego's a mimicker. And if you don't have an internal conscience connection, you can't learn from your spirit body. You can't feel the ups and downs of ascending and descending vibration that tell you what to do, not to do. You don't have that. And you don't have anyone that loves you, and you don't have anyone that taught you how to thrive. Sad. It's really, really, really sad. Now, those people who know better and they have a conscience and they continue to hurt people for personal gain, those are the ones that are right. If you can still do something to somebody even though it lowers your vibration and hurts you, and you've been taught better and someone actually loved you, you don't have any excuse when that day comes. And I'm not religious at all, but that day's gonna come because my day came. So I know that day comes because my day came. And when I was in this low state and just negative thoughts, I had always been a really habitual positive thinker. My dad taught me the power of positive thinking, and so it wasn't like me to have these really hateful negative thoughts about someone who had hurt me or my children, and it didn't feel right. But when I really stopped and thought about it, these people don't know any better. How can I hate them? I'm turning into what I hate the most. So am I a hypocrite? And I was. By hating that person or those people, I was becoming a hypocrite. And that's certainly not who I am. So I realized that the only way to get that kind of predator behavior to stop is to love those people. You gotta love what hates you. If you want it to transform, you gotta love what hates you. It'll hate you because you love it too. But eventually, it won't hate you anymore because it'll realize that there is something more than what it has. And it'll start seeing that, and it'll be proof. And that is why somebody died on the cross. I don't know if it was Jesus or Mary, but one of them died on that cross. And they were willing to do it because it proved, as they were dying, and they were loving the people that killed them as they killed them, and that proved to everybody that there is something more. How? Because nobody could believe it. How could you love us? We're torturing and killing you. How could you love us? Because my spirit won't let me hate you. That's why. That's what the whole dying for our sins thing is. So, this whole resurrection thing, I think it was Mary that died on that cross, honestly. And really, if you want to really dig into it, Jesus and Mary are just another version of a really old story that is from the Egyptian 21st dynasty. And there was some point, when the Egyptians switched from a very, very intellectual group to a more self-absorbed type intellect. And here's what I think. You can stop this at any moment, but here's what I'm thinking. We find the story of creation on the Sumerian tablets, and we find the story of the Great Flood on those Sumerian tablets. So we've got a story of our origin along with the story of our possible mass extinction. So maybe whatever was here at that time created something to get through that mass extinction without being extinct. Did they add something to our vessel to help to their vessel? Did they add something to their vessel so that they could get through that time of near mass extinction with success? How would that be possible? What would they have done? Well, we have this right and left hemisphere. The left one processes our individuality. The story's about our individuality. That right hemisphere processes our vibration. Maybe they only had one hemisphere. Maybe that's why they were telepathic. Studies are showing that the right hemisphere actually has a transmitter and receivers in it. neurons that transmit and receive messages. Well, if they were already operating functionally, why would they need to be individuals? Let's look at nature. Because if you look at nature, you'll find the answers. The answers are everywhere. There is an organism, slime mold, Felis distinctiumarium or something like that. Anyway, it's yellow. It's a slime mold. It is a single cell organism, a eukaryote, that when it can separate into single cells, or it can form and make one big cell or big unit full of cells. But there is no, all the cells are identical when they come together, and then they all transform into whatever they need to be for the whole unit to progress. Cool. And it's a plasma. It's a slime mold. It has memory. There have been some studies done on it where they blew cold air on it that it didn't like at the same time every day. I think the 4th day they blew that cold air on it, it prepared for it. It had memory. Wow. So anyway, back to this ancient culture. It's like having a bunch of vessels with one mind that think and communicate through the vibration, because that's how the slime mold does. And even when they're separated, they can come back together and find each other because of signals that they send out from their magnetic resonance or their vibration. So anyway, so maybe we had a culture that was one mind with a lot of bodies. Maybe we had 12 cultures with one mind. The 12 tribes. Maybe that's where that came from. Like bees. Bees are that way. They all have the same exact frequency. And there's one leader. It's probably the one in the group that has the highest frequency, because it can process information faster. And so it helps the rest of them and guides them. So maybe the one with that was processing the information the fastest in one tribe communicated with all the other leaders of all the other tribes, and that's where we're getting the same technology across the world, because these 12 leaders of these 12 tribes were communicating with each other on what to do, and they all came up with a plan together to do a gene splicing, add reptilian DNA to their DNA, and create a mirror image of their brain so that they could have something made in the image of the other. It wouldn't really be that hard to do if you had 12 human beings that were connected to the universal mind. It would be very easy to do, because things are really simple. The higher you ascend in vibration, the simpler everything gets. It makes some sense. So maybe they created our left hemisphere. Maybe that's what the Wands of Horus were, because the Wands of Horus were to emit a magnetic frequency, and they actually cause waves in the brain to activate. So maybe those mirror neurons that they made in the image of all the other neurons to make sure that that left hemisphere could communicate with their original contribution that was not of their creation. Maybe the Wands of Horus were used whenever those needed to be jump-started on the prototype humans, Adam and Eve, or whoever. A neuron is powered by magnetic resonance, vibration. Everything's powered by vibration. So, you know, maybe they were creating these, I guess, artificial intelligence. History repeats itself. Create something to help you get through that's a little more advanced than you are. So the story of the Watchers, I don't think was about them watching over this experiment and making sure this, that, or the other. I don't think the forbidden fruit was, oh, there's a red cardinal, like that. I don't think the forbidden fruit was anything, you know, if it's a snake and they took reptilian DNA, then that's just saying that you need to be guided by your right hemisphere and your spirit for knowledge, your conscience. Don't take the forbidden fruit. The fruit is the knowledge. Don't let your ego be mimicking what you see and others do, because that's forbidden fruit. But if that's the only thing you have to eat. So, I mean, this whole thing about Eve eating that and blah, blah, blah. I mean, people are at such a low vibration for eons that they've been translating this shit like it's just the worst situation ever. Really, it was like a beautiful thing, right? And it wasn't like nobody got punished. Nobody oh my gosh, that's just ludicrous. You know, maybe that catastrophic event that caused the flood was a comet full of information from across the universe. If you look into the Mayan stories, you will see the metaphors that could tie into that very easily, and the twins that went into the rivers and the earth. Light, photons, information. That's all anything is information. If it's in a photon, it's highly intelligent. A comet could fly itself here. Maybe the universal mind sent it here for us to access. So anyway, you know, it's possible, where I'm going with all this is it's possible that after that traumatic event happened, that catastrophic event, the individuality was created for survival of an individual vessel. Ego in survival mode after an evolutionary period. This is what we're left with. It's an easy fix, but it's an easy fix. But anyway, you know, there also were crystals. There's crystals in the earth, right? Well, crystals hold information. Perhaps there was a crystal on the earth that was the central consciousness or memory storage, cloud storage for all the species. And that's how they were connecting with the universal mind, was because the waves coming through space would be collected in their crystal. Well, when this comet came, it shattered the crystal. While the silica in the ocean, Atlantis lost at sea, the moon is so shiny, perhaps because upon impact, that crystal melted on the face of it, and that thing is the comet. Which there are some theories that are very well accepted in that science community that say that. That crystal could have melted upon impact and put a coating over the moon. Well, that's interesting because all the shrapnel would have gone into the water, and our ocean is full of silica that crystals are made out of. Not only that, the ocean and the moon are both connected, and they're both associated with consciousness. Isis thought. So anyway, this whole situation, in this human experience, in this now, could be a big misunderstanding, people losing connection from that catastrophic event, vessels that, prototypes that weren't completely done, that had to, you know, when the elders, or when the crystal got shattered, I'm sure all the elders turned to zombies. Well, there's stories about that too, left behind, because they wouldn't have had a cloud storage. And if most of them died, they wouldn't have had points of consciousness to transfer information. So what the slime mold does when it comes together, it forms slugs. Those slugs come together and they start forming like a fungus type organism that makes a spore. And all of the cells are altruistic and they will give themselves up. Oh, I'm sorry. Good. I thought my phone turned off. Happens sometimes. Okay, so anyway, all of those cells will make a stalk and a spore out of some of the other cells, and they will send the spore off into the unknown to continue. And all of the ones that lifted it up and pushed it off die. And they willingly do it for survival of the species. And then the spores go and plant themselves and reproduce and start replicating more. It's a beautiful process this universe has created. So if we think in terms of that and compare it to the ancients, okay, so the ones with the one hemisphere created the new humans with the two hemisphere. They built pyramids to protect them. And they put them in those pyramids. They preserved a couple of the original prototypes. Not prototypes. Or yeah, maybe prototypes. But they preserved and mummified the one hemisphere brain, or maybe a couple of the prototypes, and saved them just in case when we all woke up with our consciousness and started activating these memories of the ancients through the light information around us. If it was that bad, we could go back to being one hemisphere humans again. Or perhaps God had them do it. Maybe the universal mind had them do that, so that if this experiment went wrong, we could at least go back to that point. It's like back up and save. By mummifying that vessel. That way we don't have to start this over again from point A. Okay. Well, I have enjoyed my Sunday drive with you, sharing my thoughts. Just know that we're all one. And we're all individual as well. So love and kindness and understanding that anything's possible will allow you to see that no one's right or wrong with their thoughts of the unknown or the opinions of the unknown. And every prediction or thing you think about is going to happen, it's just a prediction of the unknown. Nobody's predictions are right or wrong, because it hadn't happened yet. Okay? So, that being said, the possibilities are endless, and everybody should respect everyone else's opinions and thoughts as being valuable. Because they are. They give you more options. Wouldn't you want more options? I do. I want to know everybody's perspective. That way I can pick the best one. So, please offer me your opposing view, because I may adopt it, and I want to be the best I can be. So if I don't see something, tell me about it. This world will change, because when you resurrect that decay off your body, I've got a video called Ascension Hack, and it's how I did it. You basically like an analogy would be from turning to a proton to a photon, okay? Well, what happens when a photon and an electron meet? Say a proton would be like light as a feather, decay that's been neutralized, that the spirit is transforming from the inside. Okay, once that decay is gone, you turn to a proton. Well, if you have a huge amount of decay and your vibration is so low that it's not even in a rest phase, it's like drawing in at that point, like a black hole does, because it needs light to come inside and heal it. A photon can collide with an electron, and what's left are two protons. And that's what we need to do for each other. It's the ones that have a really huge buildup of decay around their spirit, like a really dark, thick soul. Those people need to be helped by people who have resurrected. So get yourself to a photon. Find those people, because your spirit, once you are light as a feather and you have gotten all the decay off, your spirit radiates like you wouldn't believe. And you can be in a room with somebody and your spirit will start interacting with their soul that's encompassing their spirit, and it'll start transforming the particles in their soul so that they can resurrect too. And that's why a lot of people that are at a high vibration, we feel like we're always getting, you know, someone's always coming to screw us over and da-da-da and da-da-da. Well, that's a beautiful thing, because they're attracted to you because they need you. Not in a, you know, they might be malicious, but subconsciously they don't even realize that the reason they're attracted to you is because you're lifting their spirit. So if you are at a point where you can radiate your light like that, it's, in my opinion, a sin not to share. Because if you're a photon, you can collide with an electron and make two protons. You have a consciousness that you can train to be habitually positive that will immediately bring you back up into a photon again. See what I'm saying? So you're always a photon. So now the photon collides with the electron and you get a proton and a photon. Photon teaches the proton. All of a sudden you got two photons. Everything's transformed. That's how it works. Have a great, great, great journey. Let's do this. Let's help each other, man. Let's do this. It's easy. We can do this, guys. Love you.